Good afternoon. I'm delighted to see some of the heads here and also the students. We feel already, enthusiastic that at least a gender sensitization program, even a little bit of coercion, a little bit of pressure, and a little bit of encouragement, that at least the whole looks little full. On the International Women's Day, we were having a trouble that we are talking to each other. So let me give first a thank you and greetings of the day. Now, let me start with the basic fact that this gender sensitization problem, or rather the process of gender sensitization, is now compulsory for all educational system, right from grade 11 to higher education system. Government of India, UGC and NCERT both have appealed to the education that we should have a curriculum and a pedagogy which is gender neutral, and actually we should eradicate any kind of gender inequality which exists. And we all know that it exists in the layers of our existence, of our everyday life, though we understand that we are not that because we are educated. Now, that is why gender sensitization program is, it takes care of the innermost bias and stereotypes, and if we can eradicate it to some extent in our educational systems, we will be actually very happy. Now, this is the first gender sensitization program in SNU, organized by Department of Sociology and Political Science, and the faculty member of Political Science and Sociology. They are also integral part of it, along with the students who are the integral part of this gender sensitization program. Actually, without them, we could not have done it. Now, it's my onerous task to say what is gender sensitization in terms of at least defining it. It's about changing behavior and instilling empathy into the views that we hold about our own and other genders. To begin with, we are not men and women, boys and girls, we are individuals. How do a child know that she is a boy or a girl? The adults tell us that you are a boy and you are a girl. Other than that, the child has no way of knowing that she or he is a boy or a girl. So this particular attitude is embedded in all of us, and specifically in the cultural milieu, that we ought to identify them on the basis of the sexual organ. But if that would have stopped there, we would have been better off. But along with it, we create gender, meaning gender is socially constructed in every step of the life, in every way. Used to be a custom that we give girls pink colored dress as gifts when they're small ones, and blue for the boys. I don't know who decided it in the heaven or hell or art that blue looks better on boys and pink looks better on girls. It's actually always vice versa. Everything looks better or worse, doesn't matter. So sensitization is seen here as the awareness of informed disposition to propensity to behave in a manner which is sensitive to gender justice and equality issues. I'll give a few practical examples without going into the theoretical position, because we have very respectable speakers who will speak on that along with it. Let's say whenever we used to call chairman, and it was supposed that no woman could chair anything. The women are supposed to sit on the feet of the man. Remember Wife's Letter of Rabindranath? So this is what it is. There was no chairperson. Person was there, not there. So when there was a protest, etc., we had chairperson. And we used to call the common man. There is no as if common women. Now we have changed it, or haven't changed it in daily life. Do we say the average person as the common man, but we could do that. Or let's say freshman, first year student. Or let's say mankind. Instead of, we can say people, humankind. We could say manpower, or we could say labor, staff, etc. So in every way, language is our vehicle. So in every way in the language, we are gendered. And though there are gender neutral nouns and pronouns now available, but in everyday life, in mundane one, we are not conscious. We become conscious when we come into the public arena and try to control ourselves. It is like that British Labour leaders who would have given a very fiery lecture when they meet with the workers of the same factory, come home and beat up the wife for not having the food warm enough. It is like that. I hope we are gone beyond this. Let's say some of the stereotyping we do. Nandini and Toru both have full-time jobs. He helps her with housework. Can we alternatively say Nandini and Toru both have full-time jobs? They share the housework. Will Tarun lose some of the masculinity? No, probably. All chefs are almost men in all of the 5- and 4-star restaurants. So they will not lose any masculinity. Neither if the woman fixes the electricity will lose her femininity. Because after all, femininity and masculinity are gendered. They are social constructed. I mean, who is masculine? With whom? Dara Singh? Physical strength? Who is masculine? Hitler? So we don't actually know, but we have created and use it without thinking. Let's say research scientists often neglect their wives and children. True. All research scientists often neglect their families. Gender neutral statements. I mean, now we cannot say men are only research scientists. Women can be also research scientists. Delegates will be provided, the transport will be provided in the conference for the delegates' wives. Transport will be provided for the delegates and the accompanying persons. Can we say that? So, if we think that we actually say things and educated ones find it, we are not talking about slum dwellers, illiterate, etc. We are talking about educated ones. I mean, to quote Rabindranath, it's that we have all degrees, but probably not the education. We are either parrots or glorified parrots, those who think that I have degree. So, in search of, ambiguities, we still cannot control ourselves in calling Mrs. so-and-so. The moment you call Mrs. so-and-so, it has to be said that with a drum beating saying, oh, you are married and taken as property. But Mr., there is no other thing. Mr., whether taken, whether not taken, you cannot know. So, there is a chance for you. You are married and you are not wearing all those things. You don't look married. That has been asked to, I'm sure, those who do not wear like me, million times, but never asked to the male. You're not wearing anything. How do I know that you're married or not? That has to be not known. Men being not married or married doesn't matter. They're men. Now, after this, somebody would think that I am against men. No. Absolutely not. Gender sensitization is not beating man against woman. Gender sensitization is to crumble, give a strike to patriarchal dispositions, patriarchal values, patriarchal processes and structures. Because until we dismantle the master's house, we cannot free our slaves. So we have to dismantle the house of the patriarchy. One good example, I am no follower of anybody, please, but just a good example. In the Shastro Shati card of West Bengal, the woman is the house, main person in the house. And that often had created trouble in the house, that her name would go as first. Some of the very masculine husbands were actually threatened, and some were not. So patriarchy is diverse, so is men and women. And it's no telling that women actually like to say, my husband cannot eat even a meal, not even a breakfast, until I cook for it. So deifying the wifehood. But the moment she will die, after a month or so, the husband might get married and used to the other wife's cooking very well. She cannot even know as even a bhutni. She cannot be a ghost to know. Shobona heshe more jao na, eto taratari. I'm just touching the tip of the nerve so that people think. Because I don't know how long we can continue gender sensitization, 2, 3, 4, 5. So just giving a quick comment. Now I'll give a little bit of statistics just to show that we are doing very badly for the last 10 years, roughly speaking, the last decade, as far as Indian women are concerned. We are 140 in about 156 people, or countries. We are 140 in 2020-21 World Economic Forum Global Gap Report. We have slipped 28 cases. We are 112, 6-7 years back. And we're not thinking about it, that we have slipped. We are actually not appointing women because we are sticking to family wage, man as breadwinner. So women should not be in the workplace. We have a very, very dismal ratio of 20% roughly women in the workplace. And last but not the least, the domestic labor and domestic violence. Domestic labor was considered very natural for women to cook, clean and care, 3 C's. This automatically comes as if the moment we are born, our uterus comes with a spatula and a pressure cooker. Our hands comes with such smoothness and softness that we can take care of people. So naturally we are destined. Normally we are supposed to know cooking. Normally we are supposed to know how to care for. But men don't. How interesting. Because men in all care institutions are more in number. Except the nurses in India. India still doesn't make male nurses. India still thinks male nurses cannot take care of a patient. 1 or 2 private hospitals, you might see one, but not as a designation. So domestic labor, cooking, cleaning, caring for the child is somewhat unmanly job still in India, although it is common to have it in Scandinavian countries. And if in the Scandinavian countries, if you really are not playing the proper role of the parent, you will be demoted from your job in the promotion list and you will not be promoted. So those 4 are generally in the gender equality index 1, 2, 3, 4. Sweden, Finland, Scandinavia, Denmark. But in here we still think, men cooking, cleaning, washing, somewhat, exceptional job, cannot be job of regular, but it's a regular job of women. So women who are in the public sphere, in terms of doing jobs, they actually do two jobs, one paid and one unpaid. It is said in the literature, labor of love and labor of wage. So the domestic one is labor of love. As the result of labor of love, women are generally beaten up, severely criticized, and we have more women patients after the age of 35. Two psychologists, Dr. Shubhana Sen might say something else or corroborate. More goes to the psychologist or psychiatrist when they do two jobs, because they are under tremendous mental pressure and guilt feeling. I should be taking care of my children properly 24 hours of the day, but I couldn't do that. So these are the things, very small things of everyday life are the ones we generally focus on. And from everyday life we pick up the biases and try to sensitize. Basically, this is the purpose of any sensitization program. Then we go into from area, law, media, science, technology. We can go to the areas a lot. So that's why I said this cannot be a one-time program. This has to be in a phase-wise manner. So, in a sense, what are we actually saying? We are saying we should nurture children as individuals, as persons, not men or women, as these are false categories. We made it dividing and creating others. We made divisions. As woman you get this, as man you get this. No. As per your interest and ability, you will be supported. And this is done also in the Scandinavian countries, right from the level of school. And they don't go to school until 7 years of age. And there is no exam from 7 years to 16 years. So there is a lot to learn. Now I will finish with this one. A gender equal society would not be one where the word gender does not exist. It has to be where gender does not exist. Because gender is created by the social circumstances and culturally diverse, very different from one to one, but there is a similarity where the unit of analysis becomes men and women, not individual. This was told by us, Gloria Steinem, very old American feminist of the 60s. Now, gender sensitization means gender equality to be nurtured. Equality is not a concept. It is a necessity. Equality is like gravity. We need to stand on this earth as human beings. That is how we understand gender equality. And the purpose of gender sensitization, small, big, whatever, is to instill those values and inculcate so that maybe a long time after all of us are gone, gender equality would be there. I mean, this is hope against hope. Our Honorable Vice Chancellor has come. My task was to continue until he comes because he was in a meeting and I didn't want his, introductory address, welcome address to be given. And then, so I lingered a bit, but thank you for, not objecting in my lingering, and thank you to our great Vice Chancellor who always supports us, that he rushed from one meeting to the other. So I will now call, and it is my pleasure and honor to call Professor Dr. Dhrubajyoti Chattopadhyay, Vice Chancellor of Sri Chandra University, and one-time old friend from Calcutta University. Sir, it's all yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. Let me first thank the Department of Political Science and Sociology for organizing this very important and interesting program, and also to my great friend, Professor Gula Bhadra, who actually first conceptualized the program, shared with Shanchari, and then both of them worked how to organize it. And when they organized it, the name of the program given is Gender Sensitization Program. I don't know, maybe that's the reason why there is only one gentleman and all the rest are actually women. So over here a sensitization, but the organizers, they seem sensitizing like this. It's a little bit of a question too. So we, by ourselves, we are actually, we actually talk a lot, but practice a little bit different. So we have to first understand how to practice what we are saying. And there, what Professor Bhadra mentioned at the end, I think that is the most important thing. Gender equality is something which we don't have to say that it is, but it is absolutely a necessity. So when we are talking like that, the basic conceptualization of this particular program with Shruti Natak by the students itself is a nice thing, because it's the first time you can see that with respect to a theme, students are actually organizing short this type of Shruti Natak, and let's see how they are going to perform. So I'm really thankful to Professor Bhadra for actually thinking that this may be one of the way you can do. So let me formally to start, I must actually thank our mentor and the founder vice chancellor of Sister Nivedita University, who has given the leadership from 2018 onwards for being with us, and we are very thankful to Professor Thakur that you always encourage us with your presence. Then I must thank the organizers, the faculty members of the Department of Sociology and Department of Political Science, and definitely today's speakers. The today's speakers we have with us our own speaker, Professor Devush Srimuji, as well as we have the other speakers, Dr. Subarna Sen is an eminent psychologist and eminent psychologist and faculty and facilitator, and Dr. Prabha Roy Chaudhary, who is from the School of Law and Government in Dublin City University, Ireland, from where she actually right now came back to Kolkata. I also like to thank all the faculty members who are present over here, and definitely the students who are the main, actually the driving force for today's discussion. Now over here, certain things actually bothering me quite a bit. See, this particular concept of gender sensitization, gender equality, we are actually mentioning it for a very, very long period of time. But let me give you one particular couple of examples. You know, the percentage of working women in India has almost halved over last decade. So we're saying that equality, sensitization, but percentage is going down. And in 2004-05, the share of working age women in paid job was 43%, which was the same as in 93-94. So in 10 years it's remained constant. But this dropped to 27% in 15-16. So from 43% to 27%, and we are getting more aware of this fact. So why we are having this type of things? Now, in rural India, the slide has been much worse, and women's contribution to agricultural work is largely being changed, and the sector has not generated employment as such. The McKinsey Global Institute report, The Power of Parity, on how gender inequality affects GDP and the economy of India, links for the first time gender equality in work with gender equality in society. This is a very important thing. Equality in work related to equality in society, how the society actually looking at it. And it
mentioned in that report, the former is not possible without the latter. So no country has yet achieved full gender equality, and women across the world continue to suffer for discrimination and unequal rights and opportunities. Globally, 1 in 4 girls does not attend secondary school, and 1 in 5 girls is being married before their 18th birthday. Child marriage robs girls of a bright future and brings a high risk of death and injury related to pregnancy and childbirth. Empowering men and women is the most effective way to reduce this disparity and achieve a sustainable population size that respects the limits of Earth's carrying capacity. The project Drawdown, which compares the effectiveness of different measures to curb the different types of climate change, has shown that educating girls and securing women's voluntary right to high-quality family planning together would reduce atmospheric carbon dioxide. So you can see everything is related with each other. And so ensuring equal participation of girls and women in education and the workplace, which we actually insisted in the university we achieved. We have 54% of our faculty members are women, and in case of the students, we have 59% of the students are women. So women are in a little high percentage in our university. Now, over here, I must say that gender sensitivity can help root out the negative attitudes about gender. It helps us decondition ourselves to make a way for more progressive values. Indeed, it is also a long process. It can take weeks, months, or even years to unlearn some beliefs. But it is the only way for a society to collectively and genuinely advocate for gender equality. We still have a long way to go. Although the law mandates gender sensitization workshops in any workplaces, as mentioned already by Professor Paul, that MHRD, everybody is right now actually mentioning about having this type of workshops, but not everybody is taking it seriously. In a world preoccupied with assigning the onus of safety to survivors and marginalized groups, an effective gender sensitization session should raise awareness among everyone. It should target all co-occupants and highlight their role in ensuring that any space they inhabit is free from violence, discrimination, and harassment. With this, I again congratulate the departments for organizing this workshop and also keeping their mind about the mandate from the MHRD and University Grants Commission regarding the workshop. But outcome of the workshop is our belief, what we are going to practice. So that is very important. But I hope that slowly we can achieve that. Having this type of similar workshop and discussions, we have to make ourselves really sensitive about this issue. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir. I would now like to request our mentor, Professor Dr. Ashok Ranjan Thakur, to kindly say a few words.
Respected Vice Chancellor, Mr. Chatterjee, our guest speakers of today's program, and my colleague from Calcutta University, Professor Bula Bhadro, and my colleagues of SM, and my dear students. Indeed, it's a great honor to be asked to be present in this kind of gender sensitization program conducted by SLU. The first thing that I tried to figure out was in Wikipedia, the first sentence about the gender sensitization speaks about teaching of gender sensitivity, behavioral modification that needs to be followed, and the third was encouragement of gender equality. Briefly, I would touch upon these three things as a marker point. That there has to be a teaching, and which other institutions other than a university should be the right place where we start the teaching. But why do we need to teach? I think Professor Bhadra in her opening statement has mentioned that while the children are brought up in their early days, the society imposes certain concepts in them which makes gender an issue. In order to deconstruct that concept, I think we need to teach ourselves to move out of that and become gender sensitive. The second part is related to that. You need to have a behavioral modification. The reason being that the behavioral pattern is almost ingrained in us. And in order to move out from that, you have to modify. And I think that is the hardest part. Professor Bhadra has already mentioned that in most of the cases, this kind of behavioral pattern gets reflected in our unconscious response to various situations where we call a chairperson chairman, where we call the other specific terminology used gender biased. The third part, I guess, is really getting into the bottom of a gender equality concept. I'm thankful to Dhruv for pointing out the poster where he found traces of some kind of gender inequality. But if we could think that the persons over there are experts in their field, then perhaps his query is answered. Because whoever is over there, they are the experts and they should be viewed as gender neutral. Now, I would kind of end because we have the experts speaking to us, and even more important is that our students are ready to galore us with a Shruti Nato. Rabindranath wrote Gora. It was difficult for a lot of people to understand that Gora was modeled after Sister Nivedita. And I guess the problem was the gender issue. Because how come the hero be modeled after somebody who was not a man? So I'm absolutely in tune with our Vice Chancellor in saying that the Sister Nivedita University should be the right place where we hold up this torch high enough so that the others can see the light of understanding what it means to have a gender equal concept. That's a good part. But as always, there is a bad part to a good part. For me, the bad part was, why did Tagore marry off Bella at the age of 12? It's still an enigma for me. because she was supposed to be the brightest of the sibling. Other than Shomi, who came much later. But she was married. And she was not prepared for that kind of life. And yet it happened. So you see, even a person of the stature of Gurudev Rabindranath perhaps could not carry through this concept of gender equality in his own life. I don't want to kind of bring this as a slur on him. It's a question of how deep-seated this kind of inequality resides in us. I would end by saying that Professor Bhadra has given us the slide from 120 to 140 in the developmental index. What we need to figure out that we have a neighbor who has gone up in that index. And one of the major issues was when Professor Muhammad Yunus set up the BRAC with the money microfinancing going to the women across Bangladesh and getting them empowered. So it is not only a question of a degree being earned, but a question of dignity being offered. Because whenever someone becomes independent, he or she has the dignity to take on the hardest problem of life. I'm sure the experts will regale us with much better understanding of gender sensitization. My only take is, in my house there is a small problem, so that my wife is now incapacitated from cooking. I made sure that I do that even at this late stage by learning the hard way. I'm trying to make sure that I go through behavior modification. Thank you all for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I would now like all of our seats. I would now like to start our first segment, which is Shruti Nato, audio drama, where we present to you the departments of Sociology and Political Science. Present to you 4 audio dramas. We'll start with the first one, which is Gender Bias and Siblings. I would like to call upon stage the participants. Preeti Das, the sister, played by Ankita Chaudhary. Orkun Dash, elder brother, played by Shukrojit Sinha, Political Science Department. Oishwarya Dash, mother, played by Oishika Ganguly. Abhijit Dash, father, played by Priyam Chatterjee. Here, Preeti is telling about her evening movie plan to her parents, and a further conversation goes like,
Mom, Dad, my friends and I made a plan to go for a movie this evening at 6 o'clock, so...
Yeah, that's alright.
What? You want to go out at evening? Do you even know that there will be a number of men in the streets who can stare you, even who can taunt you? And by wearing these short clothes, if you go out during evening, something terrible like rape might happen. Aren't you aware of the number of cases of molestation and rape in the area?
Yes, I am aware of the number of rising rape and molestation cases, but you should also know that rape cases doesn't only take place during darkness of nights or evening. It can also take place during the bright daylight. And about wearing short clothes, let me remind you, incidents of rape have been reported where women wearing burqas were also being raped. And moreover, my dearest brother, let me ask you something. What exactly do you mean by short clothes? Because as far as I can see, you two are wearing short clothes.
It is not about you and me wearing same kind of attire, but the fact is that you are a girl and you should not go out at 6 o'clock evening.
But why? What's the problem?
I'm not asking you, Priti, I'm telling you.
What kind of a brother are you? Being my elder brother, you can't even trust and respect my decision. Forget about decision. You don't even consider me as an individual. And you know what? As an individual, I have some rights to take my own decision. And my decision is, I am going out with my friends this evening. And that's all.
Listen, Priti, let me make this clear. If you dare to go out today this evening, I'll just break your legs.
Don't even try.
Throughout this conversation, their parents are sitting in the breakfast table, speechless. Then suddenly, Orphan says,
For the last time I'm telling you, Priti, if you go out today this evening wearing these short clothes, I'll leave this house.
Orpon, if you really think that you're going to leave this house on this ground, then you definitely have the liberty to do so. Because your father and I have never treated you children as a boy or a girl, but always as individuals and expect the same kind of individuality from each one of you.
It's an utter disgrace to hear you talking like this, Orpon, and you call yourself an educated individual.
See, whatever you say, I can't buy that. But the fact is, you have differentiated between a boy and a girl. But anyways, I'm leaving this house.
May I leave now?
Yes.
I would now like to call upon stage the participants of the second audio drama, Shruti Nato, Marriage Commodified. The participants are Titli Senkupto, played by Shweta Vishwas, Aditya Mukherjee, prospective groom, played by Shubhodip Bala, Titli's mother, Debolina Senkupto, played by Ishika Kundu, Titli's father, Priyam Senkupto, played by Anvesh Pradhan, Aditya's mother, Shormila Mukherjee, played by Shantanu Kundu, and Aditya's father, Devojit Mukherjee, played by Priyam Chatterjee. Titli and Aditya love each other and want to get married soon. Aditya's family visits Titli's family to discuss their marriage plans.
আমাদের ছেলে মেয়ে দুজন দুজনকে ভালোবাসে আর বিয়ে করতে চায়, তাহলে দেরি না করে বিয়ের জন্য একটা ডেট ফিক্স করে ফেলি কেমন? হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, সেই বেশ। তবে দেখুন, আমাদের কিছু কথা ছিল।
হ্যাঁ, বলুন।
বলছি দেখুন, এমনিতে আমাদের কোনো অভাব নেই, কিন্তু যেহেতু তিতলি আমাদের বাড়িতে বিয়ে করে আসছে, তো কিছু দরকারি জিনিস যেমন খাট, আলমারি, এসি, ওয়াশিং মেশিন, টিভি এগুলো তো দেবেনই, কিন্তু তাছাড়া আর কি কি দেবেন বলুন তো?
মানে আমি আমার মেয়েকে কি কি দিব কি না দিব সেটা আপনারা ঠিক করে দেবেন নাকি?
না না, মানে সব তো আপনার মেয়ে দরকারের জন্যই বলা।
আর তো এখানে তোমার কি মতামত?
এখানে আমার আর কি বলার আছে? মা বাবারা কথা বলছেন এখানে।
এসব কি আদিত্য? আমি জানতাম তোমার মধ্যে আত্মসম্মান বোধ আছে, কিন্তু না, সেটা নেই। যদি থাকতো, আজকে তুমি আমার মা বাবার থেকে সব খাট, আলমারি, এসি ইত্যাদি জিনিস চাইতে না। তোমাদের কিছু নেই নাকি? তুমি গাছতলায় থাকতে এতদিন? এর চেয়ে বরং একটা ভালো কথা বলি কি, আমার বাড়িতে চলে এসো, এখানে তো সব আছে, কিছুর অভাব নেই, আর কিছু চাইবো না তোমার কাছ থেকে, ঠিক আছে না? আর হ্যাঁ, তুমি একাই এসো, আবার সঙ্গে করে কাউকে নিয়ে এসো না, কেমন আদিত্য?
এসব আবার কি কথা? কি বলছো তুমি?
এই না না না, দেখো আদিত্য, এইসব এই জিনিসপত্র ছাড়া যদি তুমি আমাকে বিয়ে করতে পারো তো ভালো, আর নইলে আমি তোমাকে বিয়ে করতে পারছি না। আমি চললাম।
আমাদের ছেলে।
আমাদের কি ফাটা কপাল।
ঠিক বলছো।
I would now like to call upon stage the participants of our third audio drama, Shruti Nando, Love Without Gender. The participants are Ronita Kundu, played by Abhilasha Poddar, Ronita's mother, Srilekha Kundu, played by Shushmita Sarkar, Ronita's father, Abhijit Kundu, played by Priyam Chatterjee, Orindam Dev, prospective groom, played by Siddhartha Bardhan, Orindam's mother, Meeta Dev, played by Piyasha Gain, Orindam's father, Mukul Dev, played by Shubhrajit Sinha of Political Science Department. The other students are from Sociology Department.
মা আমি আসছি, বড্ড দেরি হয়ে গেছে, অফিসে আজকে মিটিং আছে। ঠিক আছে, সাবধানে যাস। আর বলছি আজকে সন্ধ্যাবেলা বাড়িতে কিছু অতিথি আসবেন, তুই কিন্তু তাড়াতাড়ি ফিরে আসিস, দেরি করিস না কেমন? আমি চেষ্টা করব, চলি এখন।
সন্ধ্যাবেলায় বেল বাজে, দরজা খুলে রনিতার মা।
ও তুই এসে গেছিস, ভালোই হলো। শোন, তুই তাড়াতাড়ি ওপরের ঘরে গিয়ে বিছানায় রাখা শাড়িটা পরে নে কেমন, আর একটু সুন্দর করে সেজে নে। কেন শাড়ি কেন পরবো, কে এসেছে গো মা? উফ, এত কোয়েশ্চেন না করে যা কে যেটা বলছি সেটা কর। তোর বাবার এক বন্ধুর পরিচিত আত্মীয়ের সঙ্গে, তো আত্মীয় ছেলের সঙ্গে তো সম্বন্ধ করেছি, ওনারাই এসছেন তোকে দেখতে। না মা, আমি ওসব শাড়ি টাড়ি পরতে পারবো না, যেমন ভাবে আছে তেমনটাই থাকবো। ঠিক আছে, যা পারিস কর তুই। আর তাছাড়া আমি তো বিয়ের জন্য তৈরি নই মা, আর তুমি আমাকে একবার বলোও নি। এসবের মধ্যে তোকে বলার কি আছে? শোন, ছোটবেলা থেকেই তুই তো আমাদের সব কথা শুনেছিস, আর তোর জন্য যেগুলো ভালো হবে আমি আর তোর বাবা মিলে সেটাই করেছি। শোন, বেশি দেরি করিস না, ওনারা নিচে আবার তোর জন্য অপেক্ষা করছেন। আচ্ছা আসছি।
রনিতা তৈরি হয়ে নিচে নামে পাত্রপক্ষের সামনে।
আয় রনিতা, এই যে আমাদের কন্যা রনিতা।
রনিতা, শুনলাম তুমি চাকরি করো, ঘরের কাজ সব পারো তো?
হ্যাঁ আন্টি, চাকরি তো আপনার ছেলেও করে, সেও বুঝি বাইরের সাথে সাথে ঘরের কাজগুলোও করতে পারে, তেমন আমিও যখনই ছুটি পাই টুকটাক রান্না বান্না করি।
আচ্ছা বলছি দাদা, আপনাদের যদি কোনো আপত্তি না থাকে তাহলে আমাদের ছেলে মেয়ে দুজন যদি আলাদা করে একটু একে অপরের সাথে কথা বলতে পারে তাহলেই নাকি চেনা পরিচিতির লাভ করবে।
হ্যাঁ ঠিক কথা বলছেন। এই রনিতা যা, অরিন্দমকে আমাদের ছাদটা ঘুরিয়ে আন, আজকে অনেক ফুল ফুটেছে। যাও বাবু, ঘুরে এসো।
আচ্ছা বাবা, আমি নিয়ে যাচ্ছি। আসুন অরিন্দম বাবু।
ছাদে আসার পরে
আসলে আমার মা বাবা খুবই খোলা মনের মানুষ।
দেখুন অরিন্দম বাবু, আপনার সাথে আমার একটু কথা আছে।
হ্যাঁ বলুন না, কি কথা?
বলছি বিয়েটা আমার পক্ষে করা সম্ভব নয়, আমি অন্য একজনকে ভালোবাসি, আর তার নাম রাই। আপনি ঠিকই শুনেছেন, রাই। আর পুরুষদের মধ্যে কোনো রকম আকর্ষণ বা ভালো লাগা জীবন সঙ্গী হিসেবে আমার নেই, তাই আমার পক্ষে এই বিয়েটা করা সম্ভব।
অরিন্দম বিস্মিতভাবে চেয়ে থাকে কিছুক্ষণ, তারপর খুব বিরক্তি নিয়ে বলে,
এই বিয়ে আমি কিছুতেই করব না।
অরিন্দম তাড়াতাড়ি করে ছাদ থেকে নিচে নেমে আসে।
বাবা ওঠো, আর ল্যাংচা খেতে হবে না। মা রাখো সিঙ্গারাটা, আর ওঠো।
কি ওটা কি বলবি তো, এরকম করছিস কেন?
কি হয়েছে বাবা, তুমি আমায় বলো।
সেটা আপনি আপনার মেয়ের থেকেই জেনে নেবেন, আমি আর এক মুহূর্ত এখানে থাকবো না।
বাবা এদিকে শোনো তো, মা তুমিও এসো, তোমাদের সাথে আমার একটু কথা আছে। দেখো এই বিয়েটা আমি করতে পারবো না, আমি রায়কে ভালোবাসি। রাই? রাই তো একটা মেয়ের নাম, আর তুই একটা মেয়েকে ভালোবাসিস?
এসব তুই কি বলছিস পাগলের মতো রনিতা?
তোর কি মাথাটা একেবারে খারাপ হয়ে গেছে? সমাজে মুখ দেখাবো কি করে?
আরে তুমি এখানে সমাজ আনছো কেন? আর লেসবিয়ান হওয়াটা কি কোনো পাপ না? আমি রায়কে ভালোবাসি, আমি ভেবেছি আমি ওর সাথেই থাকবো।
চুপ কর রনিতা, এইসব দর্শনের কথা তুই আমাদের শেখাতে আসিস না। কত স্বপ্ন ছিল তোর বিয়ে নিয়ে, আর এক নিমেষেই সেই স্বপ্ন আমাদের ভেঙে দিলি।
কিসের স্বপ্নের কথা বলছো আর কিসের বিয়ের কথা বলছো মা? যে মানুষটাকে আমি চিনি না, জানি না, আজকে তুমি তার সাথে বিয়ের মতন একটা সম্পর্কে আমায় বাঁধতে বলছো? আমি পারবো না মা। তুমি আমায় ছোট থেকে শিখিয়েছিলে অপরিচিত কোনো মানুষের দেওয়া জিনিস বা তার সাথে কথা বলা যাতে আমি না বলি তাদের সাথে কথা, আর আজকে তুমি আমাকে বিয়ের সম্বন্ধে বাঁধতে বলছো?
সমাজ এসব দর্শন মানে না রনিতা।
দেখো বাবা, সমাজ কি মানে না মানে তাতে আমার কিচ্ছু যায় আসে না, আর আমরা আসলে মানতে পারি না, তাই সমাজের নামে চাপাই। তো নিজেদেরকে আগে সমাজ বদলাতে গেলে নিজেদেরকে বদলাতে হবে। আমি রায়কে ভালোবাসি, আমি ওর সাথেই থাকবো।
দোষটা কার, তোমার না আমার?
আমার মতো হয়নিও, তোমার মতো হয়েছে।
তোমার
তোমার মতো হয়েছে।
না।
I would now like to call upon stage the participants of our fourth audio drama, Shruti Nato, Wife's Letter Today. The participants are narrator Ruchika Rai from Sociology Department and Orundhati script by Shriya Gupta of Political Science Department.
Wife's letter today. Arundhati and Indranil, the wife and the husband. It's been 15 years of Indranil and Arundhati's marriage. Arundhati married Indranil married Arundhati because of her fair skin and beautiful face. Although she was from a poor background, she was educated but unemployed. On the other hand, Indranil was very rich and from an affluent family and also highly educated. Arundhati wanted to establish herself, but her father's financial condition was not stable. So she got married and obeyed her father's words. After marriage, Arundhati felt that she was being controlled, dominated and ill-treated by her in-laws and husband. She was not given that respect which she actually deserved. She was so engrossed in the household activities that she barely had any time for her. Even after 15 marriage, her relationship with her husband did not change. Moreover, after so long period of marriage, they did not have any child. So, Arundhati felt that she must get involved into some social work and work with homeless children. When she informed Indranil, he forbade her to do so, added with a patriarchal concept that a woman's job is to stay indoors, do all the household works and take care of her family members. Arundhati was very pissed off with those words and immediately decided to leave Indranil's house as she had enough of him. The next day, Arundhati left by keeping a letter on Indranil's table.
Dear Indru, it has been 15 years of our marriage, but there is not a single time where you have not insulted me. You reminded me each and every time that I'm only a worker in your house who was given food and shelter in return of my work. I will never forget the day when you gave Brinda into the hands of an abusive person. Her mother served your household when you were a child, but when she passed away, her daughter was a burden on you and you wanted to get rid of her. She treated you like her own elder brother, but that very day I felt we women are only an object to serve. I wanted to leave you on that very day, but I was too dumb and afraid as I was financially dependent. But now it's enough. Enough of your abuse. Don't think that I'm going to kill myself. Don't be afraid. Mirabai too was a woman like me. She did not have to be died to be saved. I will somehow find a new job for myself. If I fail, I will do as domestic in people's house. But there's no going back to your place. And that's my final decision. By the way, I can hardly call you a human being, as you have no quality of being a human. You are just like a slave master. But the slave masters were also hated and criticized in their times, since they didn't have two faces. Finally, you don't know what partnership or friendship is. I will send you the divorce paper. Do sign it. Do not even dream of contesting it. I hope for you, you know some laws are in my favor. I have kept the proof of your terrible torture on me, removed finally from the shelter of your feet. Arundhati.
Hope the audience enjoyed our humble efforts at Shrutinato. I will request Professor Dr. Bhula Bhatko and Professor Shanchaki Chakraborty to please come on stage, respected HODs of Sociology and Political Science Department, to carry forward the second segment, which is an interactive workshop. Give us a few moments to set up the stage for the second segment. I'd like to call upon stage our speakers, Professor Dr. Shubharna Sen, to please come on stage. Professor Dr. Proma Raichaudhuri. Professor Dr. Devesh Mukherjee.
Please felicitate the guests from outside. Shima Datta from Sociology will felicitate Dr. Shubharna Sen. Professor Sharmin Chaudhuri from Political Science will facilitate Dr. Proma Raichaudhuri. We're going to start our second segment, which is interactive workshop. The structure is like that me and Shanjali will ask questions to the speakers and they will answer, and in the form of answer they can suggest, modify, criticize, alter, whatever it is. So then we will open the floor to the audience to ask questions. But audience feels in the middle of something whatever one of the speaker had said, please raise your hand and somebody will go to you with the microphone and you can raise your question. Then please come forward and identify the department you are coming from. Let me just first give the introduction of the speakers we have. I'll start with Dr. Shubharna Sen, who has done her PhD in Applied Psychology from University of Calcutta. She has 30 years of consulting, teaching and administrative experience and is presently working as guest faculty with a host of institutions, of which one is Technology. She has a number of publications, 2 IUP publication edited books, Gender and Development and Gender Bias, Issues and Perspective. Shubharna is the Director of SciComm Education Private Limited and the Chief Mentor of Knowledge Corporation. She also lends her services as consulting psychologist. Shubharna is the Secretary of the Eastern Journal Psychological Association. We are very happy that Shubharna could make time and come. Dr. Proma Raichaudhuri has completed her MA and MPhil from the School of Political Studies, JNU, and is recently awarded her PhD from the School of Law and Government in Dublin City University, Ireland. Under the EU Mary Curie Global India ETN Program Training Workshop and Fellowship. Training Network Fellowship. This is the Mary Curie Fellowship for scholars. Her primary research areas include party politics, constitutional government and democracy in India, populism, and most importantly, gender and politics. During her term as a doctoral student in Dublin, Dr. Raichaudhuri investigated the role of political parties as the avenues for the political participation and representation of women in the Indian context. One of her most notable publications include The Political Asceticism of Mamata Banerjee, Female Populist Leadership in Contemporary India. Professor Dr. Debussy Mukherjee, our own resource, currently serving as professor and head of the Department of Law School, Department of Law, sister Nivedita University. She has over 18 years of teaching experience and 6 years of practicing experience before the Honorable High Court of Calcutta and the West Bengal State Administrative Tribunal. She has completed LLB, LLM and PhD in law from the University of Harvard and recipient of gold medals in both PG and UG levels. She has published around 27 articles in edited volumes in various law journals and has edited 12 books on various aspects of law. Her research interest is include environmental law, human rights, constitutional law, and arbitration law. So, let me take the trouble of asking you, Shuvana, first. Yes.
I don't think I need a microphone. That's not my column. But even then, for the people who are sitting at the back, maybe.
Yeah. No.
Hello? Am I too loud?
Put the microphone a little down.
Is it bearable now?
I think it is. I should about everybody can hear, right? Okay, just hold on. Do you really think that gender sensitization program should be done in educational institutions, or it is like another policy of government to have it on paper, but doesn't matter whether it's implemented or not? Because it has been going on for about last 5 years or so, but the situation of women in India is deteriorating. So how do you want to explain to that?
Before I get into the explanation, I'll take the privilege of first thanking the university, the departments who organized this, our respected, eminent founder, vice chancellor, and the present vice chancellor, all the faculty members, madam controller of examinations, and everybody out here for making out time to be here. And a very, very important thing which makes me feel happy, just the way Sir was feeling unhappy about the poster, I'm feeling happy about the hall, because in most cases, wherever I go for a seminar to speak on Women's Day or related issues, generally the ratio of men and women in the audience is very poor. So today I feel happy to see a better ratio. Point two, before getting into, straight away getting into the response to, may I address you as Buladi? Yeah,
Sure.
To Buladi's question, I would try to attempt to respond to Sir's concern. Buladi mentioned, Sir also mentioned, that the number of working women has gone less. Why? That's a real concern. A humble attempt to try to respond to this as a psychologist, because in my chamber, also as a faculty, as a visiting faculty where I take sessions with many renowned organizations, I've seen my students responding to this thing, according to me, pretty negatively. What? Absolutely social, absolutely social. Why? I have heard many girls of your generation, all the students out here, opting for not working because they felt that their mothers had worked, and for that they could not give quote-unquote enough time to the children. What a terrible social construct, and what a terrible social imposition. The sense of guilt that is instilled in the woman for not giving family their priority is probably a reason. Because their version is, I did not get enough of my mother. I don't want my child to grow up that way. And when Professor Thakur was also talking about it, that it's there in us, what psychologist Carl Jung calls the collective unconscious. It's very much there in us. The gender inequality, the gender insensitivity thing is very much there in us, in our collective unconscious. It's so all pervasive that we actually don't even recognize it as an issue. Till an extent, like the 4 Shruti Nataks which we saw, I loved each one of them. Even then, there was one where the girl finally refused to get married because they were asking for things. But the basic premises which we accepted even there was that the girl will go to the boy's house. We could not even think of breaking that, because that is something which has gone into our system so naturally that we don't even consider that to be something which needs to be broken. You know, the problem is that in our country, the women who are born, they don't die. And the women who die were never born. Why? Say a Shushmita Chatterjee who was born at the age of 27 or 28, she becomes Shushmita Sengupta. So the person who dies is Shushmita Sengupta, who was never born in life. The Shushmita Chatterjee who was born, she never dies. The inequality starts from there. And yes, if we talk about training in gender sensitization is very, very, very much needed. Why? We need to be trained in anything which does not come naturally. And because of the traditional, the conventional ways we've been brought up, we've been taught, it does not come naturally to us. Anything that does not come naturally, there has to be a training for that. So, gender sensitization needs training. And in this respect, charity has to begin at home. As a psychologist, with all confidence, let me tell you, people learn by seeing people, not by hearing anything. I might stand here and tell you a lot about gender equality, and then going out, I might practice something different, which Professor Chatterjee was also saying, that Professor Chatterjee was saying that we have to practice it. We have to live it. We have to live it by examples. That is how the next generation will learn. That is how our children will learn. At a pretty early age, when we start educating people, we tell them pretty many things. You should not steal. See, I don't steal. Agreed. You should be honest. See, I try to be honest. Agreed. So when I tell the child, you should be gender sensitive, I also have to show the child, I am being gender sensitive at home. And this is, unfortunately, with due apologies, more for the men, not for their fault, because of the way we are brought up. Because of the way we are unknowingly and unconsciously trained throughout our childhood. Bulati was giving examples of, chairperson, chairman, these two are there. Tell me, my age people, when we grew up, in our books, how many examples did we ever get with a she? 0.1%. All examples were with he, as if there's only one gender that exists in the world. It was not that. It is not that. We have to understand that, and that is the thing, that is the reason why training is very, very, very important. Gender issues are integral issues of society. Absolutely integral issues. Now, till date, the society is patriarchal. Hence, we need to have conscious efforts. We need to make conscious efforts. Otherwise, what happens is, whatever the society has instilled in us, we go that way. I'll give you one small example. I and my husband, we both work. We both earn. Everybody in this world works. Everybody don't earn. We both earn. When my daughter was very small, she was around 6 or 7 years old, one day she was suffering of high fever, 102. I had such an important meeting that I could not miss out, and he is a director. He directs all those trash serials and all. But he had his shoot, so he had to go as well. We both made all arrangements with the lady who used to graciously take care of my daughter. We made all arrangements. We went for our respective classes, respective works. We both called up at every hour. I mean, maybe 1 o'clock I, 1:30 him. That way we both called up and we both kept a track of everything. But when we came back home, we saw that her temperature was 103. Can anybody guess what were the reactions of the two of us? I sound to be very, very much feminist, which I am. As long as feminism talks about equality, yes sir, I totally agree with you. I believe in equality. I don't believe in female chauvinism. I just don't. I believe in equality. But even then, my husband came back and saw that she was suffering. He called the doctor immediately. I started feeling guilty and I started questioning myself, should I have gone to work? Why not? My husband never felt like that. And he told me, why are you even asking these questions to yourself? We both had work, so we went. That is the societal training. The society has taught the mothers to be more responsible for anything going especially wrong, not necessarily always right, but especially wrong with the child than the fathers. That is where training is important. Expectations are different. Expectations from a woman is that the woman's first priority has to be family. Managing the family, if you can go out for work, it's okay. A woman is brought up, groomed up to be relationship oriented. And that's why generally you'll find women break down more after breakups. At least I see that in my chamber. Men are grown up, brought up to be more work oriented. So the same thing which is a virtue for a man is a vice for a woman. A man being ambitious is great. See my brother's son, he's so ambitious. See my daughter-in-law, she doesn't care for her family. She always thinks of her career. The point is the same. It's a virtue for one, it's a vice for one. I feel very bad for men. Why? A man cannot cry. Why? A man is as much a human being as a woman is. A man feels bad as much as a woman does. But a man is not expected to emote. A man is not expected to be soft. The moment you're soft, you're quote-unquote effeminate. And what's wrong with that? The problem here is that we grow up our boys to be actually, you know what Guladi was talking about, masculinity. What we consider to be masculinity is, pardon my saying so, actually indecency. A man will be aggressive. And why? I mean, if a man doesn't want to be aggressive, why does the man have to be aggressive? Just to prove that you're a man, you don't have to prove anything to anybody. We all are born human beings. That's it. We don't need to prove anything to anybody. But these things are very much there. That is where the training is needed. If a woman gets a good promotion with a transfer, she's not expected to go. She's expected to give up the promotion so that she can stay here with the family. If a man gets a good promotion with a transfer, of course he's supposed to go, and the woman, even if she's working, is expected to follow him. Training is needed. Of course training is needed, because we have to understand this one major thing. We are born of a sex. Gender is our choice. Gender is our prerogative. So even if I'm born a woman, and if I feel like being outspoken like a man, it's my prerogative. Even if somebody is born as a man and feels like being soft, being kind, it's that person's prerogative. It's very much needed that we get trained in issues to be gender neutral and gender sensitive. And this would be wrong if I end saying only this. It's not only a question of a man or a woman, it's as much a question of a third gender. We all are human beings. We need to be treated like human beings, period. Nobody is the first grade citizen, nobody is the second grade citizen, nobody is the third grade citizen. However strongly the society might want to feel us like that, we ourselves have to try, again when I say we, I'm not talking about women only, I'm talking about humankind in general. We have to try and fight to come out of that. Because the practices that have been carried on for ages have got ingrained, as I said, in our collective unconscious. That is where training is needed, as somebody said, unmantled. I would use those simple words. We have to unlearn, we have to relearn, and then freeze. Thank you.
Thank you, Shuvarna. Hearing you, I just came to my mind. I think the movie has been seen, probably 90% here. Pink. It was a story, and Amitabh Bachchan was the lawyer. So, at one point of time, he said, "Actually, we should take care of our boys. We have been going in the wrong direction. Now, if we take care of the boys and tell them, what should be done, shouldn't be done, we would have saved our men and women." And in the second part of the gender sensitization, advised by government India, and one project has already been done in Haryana with 300 boys, that how do boys feel about many things, and how can we actually instill those values, even though family doesn't do it, school doesn't do it, and also workplaces don't do it, instill the values of gender equality at the same time, that you are not a boy. Just because you have a different genitalia doesn't make you any different. That's a sense. The one choices you are making, you are saying, gender is a choice, how to be a person. And how to be a person is very important. That if you think that I want to be a man, I want to be a woman, then the choices get restricted and actually stereotyped by the circumstances. So until and unless you say that we all have to be gender sensitive. I'm happy that some men are there. I do not know the ratio here, but it looks good. Positivistically, it looks good that men are there. And but we in sociology there has been a feminization. You can see that in the audio Shruti Natak, audio drama, one male individual has to play 3 fathers roles. Because we don't have male students.
May I just say one more thing? Sure. May I just add one more thing? When Buladi talked about this, that we have grown our children up the wrong way, we need to teach boys. I'll just share 2 things. One of my friends once asked me, are you in favor of women learning self-defense? I told that person, no. And he said, why? I said, for 2 things. One, all women might not aspire to be like that. If some women want to remain soft and kind, why shouldn't they be allowed to do that? Point 1. Point 2, it's been enough that we have taught our girls to do this, do that, be so, be that. So I feel that women don't need to learn self-defense. Men need to learn self-control. That's far more important. In this context, I would just share with you, my daughter, when she was in class 9, she did not have any restrictions, but one of her friends, she was asked not to go out, as we saw in one of the Shruti Nataks. Post 9, she was not allowed to go out. And then my daughter asked me this question, that if going out for women is dangerous post 9 p.m. because men might attack them, why don't you ask men not to go out after 9? It's easier for women to be there, nobody is there to attack them. I told her that that's not the point, because we have to understand that men and women or any gender are not at loggerheads. We are not enemies of each other. We are made to feel like enemies of each other. It's not that. It's absolutely not that. We have to work together to build up the world to be a better place together. Thank you, Buladi.
after Nirvaya rape, we had a Varma committee, and we thought we had changed our rape laws. We actually posed final punishment, death, and we all thought that's actually going to serve us in a sense that it will act as a deterrent. The reality after 2013 Varma Committee report, let's say it's almost a decade now, and interestingly rape has gone up. Not only rape has gone up, rape, gang rape with murder. And we haven't heard anything from our representative that we have another committee, we do this, that, except the correction of that age 16, after age 16, it will be death penalty. Now the feminist asks mostly this question, and as a feminist also I'm asking the question.
First of all, thank you for making me a part of a session like this where at least, we can have a discussion as regards what we should do rather than what exists. And although in law we actually teach the students, and as an advocate also when we practice law, we try to interpret the law to various situations. We even extend the law and try to apply to different situations. Maybe for one single moment, as I was hearing my previous speaker Subarnadi express herself, I feel that the legislature, when it has used the word person and defined the word person, perhaps the legislature has thought that the word person is more particular to be used rather than the word gender, to bring out the difference in both the sexes. So maybe to that extent, the legislature perhaps has done a good job. Before I answer your question, I'll just take up the cue from what our Honorable Vice Chancellor has said, that in this university of ours, the proportion of women students is quite high. Even the teaching faculty represented by women is also quite high. But just as Sir was saying this, I had a question at the back of my mind being raised, that when I was a student of law, the number of students, female students studying law were just a handful. I think, if I remember correctly, when I was studying law, there were only 8 of us, 8 girls who were in a class of 60 who were studying law. And today I find a total change in the scenario where there are more women than men that are studying law. I don't know, we have not done a research as to what is the basic reason why they chose to study law. But yes, this can also be a reason that I think the women today are more keen to understand what their rights are more keen to understand what they can ask for. And that perhaps has brought this difference in the presentation that we find of the students in the class. Now coming to the answering the question which you have just now asked, that whether the law acts as a deterrent in trying to curb the commission of rape. I think there is a deterrent necessary, there is something which needs to be laid down, but this should not be treated as something that will bring a difference unless we feel that we need to bring in a change in our mindset. A society without a law is not able to perform the way it should. So the law acting as a deterrent is required. But whether question, then I would say, for the presence of the law to be there, the answer to bringing about a change or reduction in the number of rape cases perhaps will not be achieved unless we try to think the other way. We as a society, we try to train ourselves, educate ourselves on the rights of both ourselves and the other parts, whether it be the male or the third gender as pointed out by Professor Sen. So law as a deterrent is required, but for it to be applicable more and to make a difference in the society, the people who are enforcing the law need to appreciate this law and make it enforceable. The number of rape cases are on the rise. That may be one of the reasons for it is getting reported now. There can be a situation that it was not reported earlier, but today at least it is getting reported. I am not getting into the answering of the question, how many of them are ultimately reaching a stage where they are getting justice. But at least that is the change that has been brought about by the enactment of laws. Thank you.
As much as I appreciate Devosri's position, I must say two things, which is a critique of legal system and judiciary in India. There is a saying in the 90s, there are two sayings actually. One is, judiciary does not render justice. The another is, we only have, little bit of judicial wisdom left. So whenever we are oppressed with over-politicization, utilized by the political parties and economic policies which have seen India only down, judiciary is left where we go for comfort. This is an individual position. People believe that judges are still fair and we can go to that. But in case of women's issues, women have been long complaining that laws are made for electoral purposes. And that is why they are not implemented. They are not even told that how to be implemented. And all governments, there is no color, all governments are very, very poor in implementing it, or they lack of political will. This we more see in case of child, because they do not vote. That's why all legislations on childhood are delayed. All things on childhood are delayed. We expect a person to be sensitive, rational, reasonable, etc. just by the presence of air. That's all. Family is a problematic situation. School is a problematic situation. Very oppressive schools system actually exist in India. Only marks, only examinations. Again, I go back to Rabindranath, who said, if you add a neon light, a neon tube to a bullock cart, how would it actually happen? So interestingly, degrees, no content is continuing up to the highest level. And UGC keeps changing rules. Yesterday, you do not need to publish paper. Other day, you need to publish paper. One day, you have a scopus. One day, you have a care. Next day, no care. No paper. Just it, because we cannot handle it anymore. Because if we do that, from where the ballots come, it might go dry. So, keep changing. One day, you must do MPhil. Next day, MPhil has no value. So, everybody is confused, so to speak. So in this confused position, I'll ask a small question to Dr. Raichoudhury and then give microphone to Shanchan for ask questions to the VH part. Dr. Raichoudhury worked on this one. You're a specialist in law and governance. How do you rate government of India, let's say from post-colonial, 47? Big question where you can choose your own. That they are really sensitive to to the women's question, really want women want to be equal, really want women to do all the things men can do, or men even cannot do. Do you really think the government of India so far has been really sensitive to say to the men and to the women who believe in patriarchy that you need to utilize your potential? That is why you are here. Consider yourself lucky you're born as a human being and getting some chances so that you can potentially utilize it. I understand this is an intersectional question, yeah, but you can choose your paradigm of departure.
Hello everyone. Thank you firstly to Professor Gulabhadro and Professor Shonchari Chakraborty for extending the invitation and also for the very kind words of introduction. And also thank you especially to the Honorable VC and the mentor and also everybody sitting here and listening to us. So like Professor Bhadro said, this is a rather generic question and I would like to keep my response a little limited to, let's say, party politics, and because that's where I come from. That's my perspective. So, to give a very straightforward answer to this question, that whether the government of India since 1947 has done enough for women, for its women citizens, there have been a multitude of perspectives on this. Of course, feminist scholars like Rajeshwari Sundararajan, and there are many others who have studied this phenomenon. I think my take would be that women are distinctly forming a very salient electoral constituency since particularly the 2019 general elections. We have seen that. Just to give you a couple of numbers here. So in 2019, 294 million women voted, and just a comparative frame, in the 1951 general elections, which was the first general elections after India got independence, 78 million women voted. So you can see that's a huge jump, right? And in 2019 elections, women voter participation for the first time exceeded that of men. So around 67.18% women voted, vis-a-vis 67% of men voting. So the gap is very close, gender gap, right? Now, we see that women are increasingly voting in greater numbers and also voting autonomously, right? This is a very important thing, that they are voting independent of what their male relatives would vote. So, given this, we understand that women are an important stakeholders, right, in policy making, in governance, etc. But we don't see enough representation in every layers of governance, in party politics, in parliaments, for example. So, I think that of course there is a lot that remains to be done by the government of India, by the state of India, so as to say, because governments are temporary and the state is a sort of a permanent institution. So I think that there have been, of course, compared to the post-colonial period in the 1940s and 50s, a lot of improvement has been done in the quality of living, or in the maybe the number of legislators who are women. But there is a lot more that needs to be done, and also there is a very important distinction that has existed when it comes to viewing women as complete citizens. Women still exist as second-class citizens, right? Of course, in the arena of practice, because we see that in the eyes of law, everybody is equal, right? So we have formal equality, but in case of everyday practices, there is a lot of inequality, as all the eminent speakers have been discussing it. We've also seen it in the Shruti Natok, so beautifully presented a while ago. So I think that in the sphere of substantive equality, a lot remains to be achieved. And I'm not that pessimistic, because given the rising number of women voters, for example, and I've seen in my course of research that there are many women aspirants in politics who want to join active politics, right? So I think that if more women take initiatives, and also if more men legislators come and do a lot for women by extending party quotas, for example, because we do not have quotas in legislature, right? So voluntary party quotas, that is gender quotas for women, can be a good alternative to it until we go